Welcome back, Rosebuds! Have you ever met someone and they just felt off, maybe not of this world? Well, today we have 7 true, not quite human encounters, and one story that is entirely made up. It's a fun little game we play here on this channel. As you listen, try and guess which story is not true, and at the end, I'll reveal which one is the fake. So sit back, dim the lights, and settle in for 8 not quite human tales to tell in the dark. Story number 1. Not David. Our church purchased a piece of land way back in the day when I was a kid. It's seriously just wooded area with a little bit of swampland, but it must have had something going on there because of this one experience I had. Anyways, we would always go there for daytime picnics and campouts with our church group. At night, when it was pitch black, we would all play manhunt. Well, one time, we all got down to one person whose name was David. Growing up, he was super fast, and he would hide really well. No one could ever find him. He would always end up being the last person. Well, one time, it was down to David. And we had split up and gone way deep into the forest toward the swamp because it seemed like it was impossible to find him. We thought he might have gone a little bit further than the area we usually stuck to. We started getting into some more muddy and wet terrain as we got closer to the swamp area. In this area, the water is probably shin deep. We saw David way out in the swamp, and he wasn't wearing a shirt anymore. With the spotlight of our flashlights on him, he looked super pale. As we approached, it was likely he saw us, but just stood there and didn't say a word. This was not normal. We could all feel that something was seriously off. Then, all of a sudden, we heard David from behind us yelling, trying to get our attention so we would keep trying to chase him down. We suddenly realized that what we were seeing in front of us was definitely not David. We all started yelling and running back to the campsite as fast as we could. Nobody believed us, of course. In fact, for years, everybody made fun of us by taunting us, saying, "The ghost of David is lurking around here tonight." But then, when I started listening to these stories on YouTube and TikTok, many of them sound just like what happened to me. I wasn't alone when it happened, and my campmates saw that thing too. It was definitely not David. Story number 2. Not quite human. I'm sure this is going to sound completely made up, but it's not. A couple of years ago, I was at a house party with some friends. We were all college age, and there was this specific group of people at the party who were so distinct and weird looking that no one I knew interacted with them. Yet everyone took notice of them. There were 3 of them. They all wore very strange attire. They seemed unnaturally pale and didn't really separate at the party. The cadence and manner in how they spoke was extremely outside of the norm. I'm unsure if this part is true, but later, one of my friends said they witnessed them on the computer Googling how to have a conversation at a party. Anyways, me and my friends had an ongoing joke at the party that they were vampires. It was quite funny at the time. The next day, as all of my friends are talking about it, nobody actually knew who they were or why they were there. I guess everyone else just assumed they knew someone, but no one really asked at the time. Probably not vampires, but maybe not quite human either. Story number 3. Inhuman mother-in-law. My mother-in-law sucks the life out of me and makes my skin crawl. I'm not trying to just make a mother-in-law joke here, because every daughter-in-law says this. Legit, the first time I met her, she just made me feel off. I can't describe it, but she doesn't seem like a normal human being, and in 18 years, it hasn't changed. I often wonder if she's an energy vampire, or alien spawn, trying to pretend to be human. Seriously though, most people would laugh at me, but you've not met her, and if you did, I can guarantee you'd say the same thing. We do have that typical daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship. She didn't like me, I'm not good enough for her son, blah blah blah. At first I didn't think anything of it, but then once my husband and I had kids, even my kids didn't want to be around her. My husband has distanced himself from her as well, but can't explain why. One day when our oldest was 5 and we were getting ready to go to her house, my son said something I'll never forget. Writing this now, it seems kind of comical, but at the time, it gave me the creeps. She lives about 2 hours away from us. My son groans when he finds out we're going to Grandma's house. Just for context, I don't want to color my children's opinion of their grandmother, so if I'm complaining about her, I make sure their little ears aren't listening. I've never badmouthed her in front of them. I figure my son is groaning about the long drive and ask, "What's wrong?" So imagine my surprise when my son responds saying, "I like her house." Then he pauses and says, "Mom, I love Grandma, I just don't like Grandma." In all honesty, I understood where he was coming from on this one. To be clear, I've never said anything like that, and neither has his father. Anyway, it's been a few years now, and she's since passed. Not to speak ill of the dead, but man, she was a weird one to be sure. We now interrupt your broadcast for a brief Black Rose PSA. Did you know that if you don't hit that like button right now, a curse of the perpetually cold water shower will haunt you forever? Every time you shower, your housemates will have always showered right before you, draining the hot water tank completely dry. It's absolutely true, so protect yourself by swatting that thumbs up button right now. All right, back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. Story number 4, Alien Encounter? This experience at that time flipped my life upside down. It changed the way I see life for what it is and how I live my everyday life. I feel it's important to state up front that I was not on any drugs, meds, alcohol, etc., nor do I have any medical history of mental illness. Last October, I woke up to the sound of someone walking and going through my stuff. I didn't open my eyes at first because I simply assumed it was a family member looking for something I borrowed and they wanted it back. I opened my eyes, and what I saw caused me to freeze in fear. On the inside, I was freaking out. It was not a member of my family. It wasn't even a human. It was a monster. Like an honest-to-God, bug-like creature, monstrous-looking thing. It had legs that were bipedal, but misshapen like grasshopper legs. The texture of its skin was wooden-looking, but the coloring was dark green and brown. The head was triangle-shaped at the top and roundish on the bottom. The upper body had a torso that was more human-like, but the head and bottom part of it gave it that gigantic bug look. I didn't see its face because it wasn't facing me. I only saw its back. It was rummaging through my stuff, and then it just leaves. It goes straight through the door and disappears. Like it didn't have to obey the laws of physics. My adrenaline kicked in, and finally, I got up, ran straight to my bedroom door, and locked it. I realize now this action was probably pointless if this thing could walk through walls. I looked from under the door to see if there was anything there because I was too scared to open the door. Then I started to worry about my family and decided to open it and check on them. Everyone was asleep, including my dog, and no one heard my screams. I questioned my mental health. Was I having a psychotic break with reality? For months, I was terrified I'd see it again, but I didn't. After about a year, I started to look for answers in other avenues of possibility. I believe it was probably an alien or dimensional being. Months later, I randomly came across this person in a video talking about their encounter, and they even included a sketch. It was exactly what I saw. That's when my jaw hit the floor, and I finally got confirmation that I'm not insane. I never in my wildest dreams thought this stuff truly existed, and knowing that we aren't alone on this planet is terrifying. I guess I really want to know, why was it here? Why my bedroom? Are they hostile or just explorers? I don't know, but I hope I never encounter one of those things ever again. Story number 5. Utterly confused. I just saw a person with a living shadow. I guess I'll need to explain. In my flurry of Google searches afterwards, this seemed like a good place to post. About 2 hours ago, I was downtown. I live in an extremely large Midwestern city. As I was sitting on the bus, I noticed something that caught my eye. The guy sitting directly across from me had a very weird shadow. The man looked completely normal, regular dude, clean cut, maybe his mid-30s, wearing a business suit. Looked like the corporate type. But what caught my eye was this dude's shadow. It was splitting into multiple smaller shadow blobs, moving around the floor underneath people, then going back to the man and merging together again. I know, this sounds absolutely mental. Anyways, that's all that happened. I would have taken out my phone to record, but the guy was literally in front of me. I was also just too stunned by what I was seeing to think beyond watching it unfold and even think of documenting it on film. Damn, I wish I had though, but people would have just thought it was special effects, I'm sure. Has anyone had this experience? Any theories on what was going on? I'm totally at a loss on this one. Story number 6. Are we alone? Are we being visited? I have my take and experiences. I just wanted to put my thoughts to words on this sort of topic. I've been addicted to pondering this for weeks now, and no output for said thoughts. A lot of what I've been reading in here and other places has postulated the idea that we, as a species, are so technologically insignificant to any form of extraterrestrials that at best they simply don't care. I personally think that's not accurate. True, we're not even a spacefaring civilization yet, but we understand the significance of life in general. In my life, I've only had 2 oddities that I still can't totally explain to myself. One being a physical sighting that was also witnessed by 2 others. Another being a dream that might not be a dream. I still remember it vividly a decade later. Sitting by a fire one night, my uncle and cousin both told me about a weird thing they had been seeing for a couple of days. It wasn't really dark outside yet, but the sun had gone below the horizon. There were 3 stars visible in the sky directly above us. My family told me that for days now, they had been watching them slowly begin to move, not just in a line or in some pattern like stars do as the Earth rotates. One by one, the stars made movements through the sky, curving this way or that way, each going their own way before blipping out and completely disappearing until the next night. And well, that's exactly what happened that night. Now, I've never seen that happen again, but I've been told by other friends they have seen similar things. As for the dream, it was weird in a few ways. I think I was 16, and I do take it with a grain of salt, but there's also something about it that has always bothered me more than your average bad dreams. I woke up on a surgical table, the typical gray-style aliens standing over me with their machines hanging from the ceiling. I was freaked out, of course, panicking, resisting against them, until my friends came in the room. They got me calmed down and led me into another room. There was an entire display set up that explained it to me. The aliens weren't experimenting on us or probing our asses or whatever. They were actually curing diseases. I don't remember much else than that, but the feel of the dream seemed so realistic, and even years later, it's so vivid. It always makes me wonder. I'd like to think if we came from an advanced civilization, that peacefully monitored less advanced life from afar. We wouldn't let them simply die off to something as boring as a disease. Anyway, that's my side of it, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Story number 7. Little Gray Guy. I really doubt anyone will believe this story, but I have to tell it. This happened last night about 1 a.m., and I don't know how to explain it rationally. I took our dog out because he was really begging to go. We live in Prescott, Arizona, so the neighborhood is crazy dark out. The street lights aren't very bright. There's very few of them, and they like to turn off randomly when something passes under them, wouldn't you know. We were walking the usual path around our neighborhood, but something made my husband and I both stop. I don't know how to properly explain what we saw. It was humanoid, bipedal, but definitely not human. It was maybe 4 feet tall, no clothes, and it was solid gray. It also saw us. It was standing under the light of a street lamp, walking backwards into the shadows of the next street. Once out of sight, my husband and I tried to get a closer look, but when we rounded the corner, maybe 10-15 seconds later, it was gone. It didn't make any noise from the gravel it was on, and there wasn't anything down that street, which was a straightaway with nowhere it could have hid that quickly. What the hell did we just see? It was definitely not an animal and not a human. I can't stop thinking about it. I never really believed in alien life on our planet, but I need answers on this one. Story number 8. Roswell Experience. Throughout my life, ever since childhood, I've had unknown encounters with things I can't explain. This is, however, my only extraterrestrial encounter. Back when I was a kid, my family would always visit Texas each year because my dad's side of the family lived there. During my middle school years, we, my parents and 3 sisters and I, went on our normal trip to Texas, but this time we drove. On our way back to Washington State, we headed up through New Mexico before stopping at a rest stop just outside of Roswell, New Mexico. I hate car rides, so I tried to sleep once we got to the rest area. I remember being awoken instantly as if something inside me forced myself to wake up. Looking around, I saw that it was still late at night and the sky was full of stars. That's when I saw a flash, almost like someone turned on the lights in the night sky before seeing something fly by. My younger sister saw and heard it as well, asking me if I'd seen it. I was barely able to process her being awake somehow before my attention shifted to the rest stop bathroom. My brain would not let me take my eyes away. Suddenly, a tall, long-armed, bipedal creature walked through the darkness to the light under the streetlight before walking past the light pole and completely disappearing. I asked my sister if she saw it and she said yes, but it gets even weirder. I turned to my sister, but only to see that it was now bright and early, and my dad was turning on the car to start driving. It must have been a 5-hour time difference and felt instantaneous. My sister still remembers this as well. We both lost the same amount of time. It's at least comforting to have had her experience this with me, because I probably would have thought I was dreaming. Well, Rosebuds, have you guessed which story was the fake? Before I do the reveal, why not leave us a comment and give us feedback on how we can improve? Any advice helps immensely, and it's only through your comments that we can know how to improve and continue to make content that you love. So don't hold back and tell us what you think. Alright, on to the reveal. Story number 2, not quite human, about the weird folks at the party, was the made-up story. I hope you enjoyed it all the same. Alright, Rosebuds, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Take care and stay creepy.